This connection will go in and out because it's poor. There's poor connection up here where I am. So yesterday I explained a little bit about what was going on with me with regards to the electronic torture. Now this is the thing, right? Initially, I pinched a nerve bending something to pick it up, right? So to my mind, it's not entirely the torture. I think I pinched a nerve when I was bending down to pick up something. But this is what the electronic torturers do. What they do is once you pull your nerve or once you pinch your nerve, they fire at other parts of your body and they make sure not, whilst your nerve is pinched, what they tend to do is they tend to fire at your hips, fire at your pelvis, and fire at the exact position in your back where your nerve is pinched as well. So it's like you get all three, in pain at once. From the outside looking in, stand. Whereas you know that if it was a pinched nerve, it wouldn't hurt this much. If it was just a pinched nerve, like, I'd be in pain, yes, but it wouldn't be pain on this level. It wouldn't be pain to the point where I wouldn't be able to make the toilet. That's deliberate. That is electronic weapons being fired on my hips, on my back, and on my pelvis, and other parts of my body as well, like where my legs are. There were weapons being fired on my thigh and on my calf, where my knee is. So they do things like that. They fire weapons on your muscles as well as your bones. But when you go to get a checkup, those injuries tend not to show up unless like the gang stalkers have been doing it for years. Those injuries tend not to show up yet. So again, from the outside in, it just looks like you're being dramatic, and it might even look like you're faking it or crying over nothing. But the truth of the matter is that pinched nerve plus torture, that is not only torture for the person that's actually going through it, it's also a psyop to make them look crazy. It's another psyop, because what these directed energy weapons do and what these microwave weapons do is they give you short-term injury and short-term pain, even severe short-term pain. But if they're smart, when they're smart about what they're doing, they don't leave any immediate injury that can't heal back. So they'll cause you as much pain as possible whilst avoiding any visible injury showing up on scans and things like that. So it's a psyop mixed with torture. And that's exactly what I'm going through right now. And, again, I've been through worse pain than this. Like, when it was 2 years ago, it was especially bad. It went on for 12 hours. No, it was longer than 12 hours. It went on for, it was, okay, so there was like a 12 to 18 hour period where I was consistently being tortured. On top of having a pinched nerve, I was tortured in my hips and my pelvis. But also I had my period. And also my period is a time where electronic torturers like to crank it up as well. So again, it just looks like all the pain that I'm going through is as a result of health problems, and it's health problems that other people have been through without screaming and crying. So again, it just looks like you're being dramatic. But again, a couple of years ago, June 2021, well, it's not really a couple of years ago, but it's June 2021, I went, sorry everyone, the reception is really, really bad. So June 2021, that was another psyop. If you're going through pain already as a result of something everyday or natural, what will happen is that the electronic torture will be cranked up during that. So it's a mixture of psyop and torture, right? Now, when I was in hospital back in June 2021, the pain was literally so bad for so long that other patients or other people waiting had to step in and say, could you please see to her? She's in a lot of pain. And yet, when they look at the scans, all they're seeing is the myelin sheath that along my skeleton is slightly worn away on my lower back. That's all they're seeing. They're not seeing the injuries. They're not seeing any injuries from the torture. Sorry. They're not seeing any injuries from the torture on me that was inflicted by the weapons, because they're trained to scan for one part, and that's my back. So they're not seeing anything other than the myelin sheath that has been worn away on my lower back. So again, to medical experts and to anybody looking from the outside in, it's just me being dramatic, and me, you know, it's just me being dramatic and me just like exaggerating the pain that I'm going through. Whereas what's actually happening is that the pain in my back, the pinched nerve in my back, or the pinched nerve in my back and my period as of 2 years ago were used as a cover. The truth is that the pinched nerve in my back now, today, and the period pain and the pinched nerve from June 2021, those were used as cover for additional electronic torture. Now again, rest in peace to my mum. I have to bring up my mum in this scenario because, again, she's not here. They can't hurt her anymore, so I can say this. Now, when it came to my mum had very chronic sickle cell anemia. All right, she had it really, really bad. So under those circumstances, it would be very, very easy for anybody electronically torturing her. It would be very easy for them to electronically torture her while she's going through a sickle cell crisis. So it just looks like she's going through a sickle cell crisis. It doesn't actually look like she's being tortured. And nine times out of 10, that's exactly how these torturers operate. They create an illness in you slowly but surely over the years. And then when that illness gets particularly bad, that's when they crank up the torture. So from the outside in, it just looks like everyday things that people go through that have been exaggerated in the mind of the patient, when really what's actually going on is, again, like I said before, normal illnesses or illnesses that have already been established are used as a cover for electronic torture to be inflicted on people. That's what's happening with me right now. That's what happened with Mum. I don't care, I'm going to say it. That's exactly what happened with her. And that's what happened with me 2 years ago in June 2021. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is the kind of shit that they pull constantly. And when I tell you, June 2021 was way worse than this. June 2021, I literally wanted to die. I wanted to die. That's how bad the pain was. But again, because of the way that in which I was tortured electronically, when it shows up on a scan, like none of that shows up on the scan. None of the torture shows up on the scan. You know, I wanted to fucking die. But in this case, they've done it. They've tortured me just enough where I'm too pissed off to even contemplate dying. Like right now, the only thing I want to do is expose this whole thing as much as I can for as long as I can, as often as I can. That's the only thing I can think about. I can't even think about dying. So I feel like they kind of learned their lesson. They learned that, you know, they can't take it far enough where people start feeling sorry for me. They have to they have to leave me with it just enough to make it look like I'm being dramatic and to make it look like I'm faking it. Yeah, they definitely learned their lesson. They're just not learning that doing things this way, it wasn't helping them win, and it will never help them win. They haven't learned. They haven't learned. So yeah, that's why I'm in the situation that I'm in at the moment. It was a pinched nerve. It was a normal situation that was exacerbated by the weapons deliberately in order to, you know, as a psyop and as torture at once. So you're going through so much pain, you actually need the help. But because people believe you're exaggerating what's going on, you know, either they won't help you or they'll treat you with skepticism. Do you understand what I mean? That's what's going on with me right now. So yeah, it's not good. It's definitely not good. But again, they can't, what they're going to do? They can't hurt my mum. They can't hurt her anymore. She's gone. So, you know, unfortunately, whilst I hate the fact that she will never see the truth being revealed about what really happened to her, she'll never see that. But because they can't hurt her anymore, they can no longer try to use her as leverage to hurt my feelings. And they can't use her as leverage to shut me up either, because she's gone. They've already killed her. So they can't use her again. That's the silver lining in this whole cloud. They can't use her again because they already killed her. But yeah, that's what's going on with me. It's you know, the sheath in my bones are being attacked. Where you know, I've got a trapped nerve back there, it's true, but the coating of my skeleton is being worn away as well. And it's like where my lower back is, there's a squeeze happening. It's like there's a squeeze like this. And it's the same that's happening with the front of my thigh, like where my knee is, and like where my calf is as well. So it's like there's a squeeze happening there. It's like it's being squeezed like this. That's the weaponry. That's not natural. That's not natural. But again, I've been through worse than this. I've been through worse pain. It definitely wasn't good. Yesterday I was crying. I was definitely crying. It was in a lot of pain. Sorry, this connection is so bad. I was in a lot of pain. Just getting to the toilet yesterday, like just going downstairs and going to the toilet was a battleground. I was crying and you know, complaining the whole time. My dad can barely, you know, he can't handle any of this. So I'm just like, you know, having to muddle through. Dad tried to help me the best he can. He called 911. He called 111, like I said. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me. And in the meantime, I've just been asking for painkillers and a basin so that I don't have to travel downstairs. But even the basin, I sometimes miss. I've missed the basin once. And, you know, there's pee everywhere. So, you know, with the painkillers, I can just about make the basin. Just about. And that's with painkillers. You can only imagine what the shit is like without them. So it's debilitating, that it's deliberately debilitating you, whilst again having other people think that you're just being dramatic and you're just making shit up. Do you understand what I mean? It's really bad. It's terrible. And yeah, I knew they'd do something like this. This is why back in my flat, I moved the bed to my living room near where the door is, because if an incident happened like that again, whilst I was in Brighton and whilst I was in my house, if an incident happened like that again, I would already be in my bed, but I'd already be near the door. I wouldn't have to crawl very far to the door. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I have my bed in my living room. Because if shit like this happened when I was at home, do you understand what I mean? Getting to the bathroom would actually be harder. But getting to the front door, should I need to call an ambulance, that would have been easier for me to do because the bed is right next to the door. So this is exactly why I had my bed in the living room in my flat. But because the perps in my neighborhood were hired to be, well, cunts, it became a whole thing. It became a whole thing when it was none of their business. So it's just like, for me, it's you know, it's just, for me, it's obvious, but for other people, it might be difficult to wrap their minds around. But this is a silent genocide that's been going on for decades now. Electronic weapons against specific communities of people, specific groups of people, You can probably guess who those groups are. Once again, I spoke to Barry Trower in Devon in November. He's an ex-Navy MI5. He works with MI5. I sound like a broken record talking about this shit, but I spoke to him. And he said that there is absolutely a genocide going on. Like, it's a combination. It's not just about electronic weapons, though. It's a combination between non-ionized radiation that is pre-existing. You know what non-ionized radiation I'm talking about. And directed energy weapons and electromagnetic frequencies. So it's a combination of the two. So the non-ionized radiation that is already established is harming people. That's why younger people than me are aging really, really badly. Like, you know, I'm aging badly, but then there are young people who are healthier than me technically that either look about my age or sometimes even older. Like, there are younger people who look like they're my age. That's not by accident. Not only is the nutritional value of the food completely diminished at this point, but on top of that, you've got non-ionized radiation in the air dehydrating the body. Even as, you know, our young people these days are completely health conscious, we've still got all kinds of massive dehydration in the air because of the non-ionized radiation that's already established. So younger people are still getting sicker. There's still an increase in cancer. All of this is for a reason. There's an increase in cancer. There's an increase in heart attacks, an increase in strokes, an increase in diabetes. So that's got actually nothing to do with obesity. This is what I thought. I thought obesity had something to do with it. But at the time obesity was at its peak, life expectancy was also at its highest. That's what nobody tells you. When obesity was at its peak, life expectancy was also at its highest. So all this fat shaming that's going on, bollocks. Bollocks. Because at the same time obesity was on the rise, people were living longer in this country than they ever had been. So it's just after that peak that suddenly there's a downward drop. The downward drop is down to the non-ionized radiation that's already established in the atmosphere. That's literally creating extinction level events. That's killing off wildlife. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why our young people are aging. That's why there are so many more sicknesses. That's why people are getting sicker. It's not because of obesity. The chemicals in the food don't help. The nutritional value or lack thereof in the food doesn't help. You're right. But it's the non-ionized radiation in the atmosphere that is responsible largely for what's happening to people. Because again, it dehydrates the body. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And the increase in mental health issues, same thing. If the body is being dehydrated, it's no wonder more people are getting ADHD and all the rest of it. You know what ADHD is? ADHD is as a result of malfunctioning in the striatum part of the brain. There's something called, there are spiny neurons in the brain called striatum. I can't remember what it is. It's because I wrote it down on my Facebook. It's a striatum medium precortex. So those are the spiny neurons along the striatum, right? That is responsible for habit formation, motivation, and hang on. So it's you know, it's habit formation, motivation, and motor control. So it's basically executive functioning, if you really want to get into it, that the striatum and the striatum medium precortex, that's what that is responsible for. That is responsible for the executive functioning that people with ADHD lack. And also, the malfunctioning in that same part of the brain is also what's responsible for something called rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is when you become rejected. Like, For a normal person, for a person who's so-called neurotypical, rejection would hurt enough already. But when you have rejection sensitivity dysphoria, the pain from rejection hurts that much more because of the malfunctioning in your brain. And once again, on top of the non-ionized radiation dehydrating your body, that injury can actually be manufactured, just like paranoid schizophrenia. All of that could be manufactured simply through causing direct trauma to your brain. All of that can happen simply through causing direct trauma to your brain. So the striatum medium precortex, or no, it's not precortex, it's striatum medium prefrontal are the name of those neurons. So those are responsible for, the malfunctioning of those are responsible for ADHD. And again, it's no surprise that more people are suffering with ADHD as a direct result of non-ionized radiation. The amount of diseases and illnesses that shit causes. And that's just standard non-ionized radiation that hasn't been weaponized. Well, it has, but, you know, it's on a more subtle level. That's before we even get into the electronic weapons. That's before we even get into the deliberate brain trauma and nerve trauma that is caused by these weapons and people deliberately firing them on you as an unlawful experimentee. That's before we even get into Havana syndrome and the amount of brain damage that leaves. I don't know if you guys remember a TI called Richard Lovelace Sr., shout out to him, but he had a brain scan of the erosion in his brain that was caused by the directed energy weapons, because again, we're dealing with Americans. American perps are about as subtle as a brick through a fucking window. So of course, not only are they going to hammer him over time, they're going to leave visible evidence of what they've been doing. Of course they are. Of course they fucking are. Again, they're not subtle. But shout out to Richard Lovelace Sr., a fellow TI. He basically posted brain scans on Facebook of the erosion of his brain. It's visible on an, you know, on a CT scan. It's visible. Do you understand what I mean? I've been asking for CT scans. I've been asking for scans of the brain to see which parts of the brains have been injured, because they can show that. You know, they make the excuse, oh, we don't have the technology. No, bollocks, you have the technology. You have the technology. You just refuse to spend money on it because you don't want to be found out. Because how do you have mental illness without brain damage? How do you have mental illness without trauma to the brain? And the trauma to the brain is going to show up. That's why they refuse to give you a CT scan. And speaking of mental illness, that can also be synthesized. And when you are caused pain in your body, or due to frequency weapons, your emotions are being affected, they can easily turn around and blame the mental illness that they caused to begin with. That's what the street theatre is for as well. The street theatre adds to that. The gang stalking adds to that. The gaslighting adds to that. It's all about giving people illnesses and then hiding unlawful experimentation and the effects of non-ionized radiation behind those illnesses. That's what this is about. That's how people have been killed off en masse. And the people who have tried to speak out about it, the people who have actually done their research and know what they're talking about, they're being laughed at. And whilst people are cackling, innocent people are dying and being tortured like this. So nah, this ain't a joke thing. This is happening. This is for real. And it's been happening for decades. For decades. To multiple bloodlines. This has been happening. This is nothing new. This is not even anything new. It's just that people are just waking up to it. And as for Havana syndrome, like the US government did this laughable thing of 1 minute pretending that it's real and that they know what's causing it, and in the other sense acting like it's some magical mysterious thing. Like it's so laughable. It's so laughable the way they pretend that they don't know what's going on. Do you understand what I mean? It's laughable how they pretend like they don't know what's going on. Now, for my mind, right, Barry Travers said that there are nations who are competing for these weapons. Remember, Lockheed are arms dealers, BAE Systems are arms dealers, Thales are arms dealers, Raytheon are arms dealers. So what you've got is, you've got certain countries competing to buy the latest technology, to experiment with the latest technology. So according to Barry Trower, you've got countries competing. Now, this is where I don't necessarily believe that, even though, truth be told, who the fuck would know better than him? He's been close to the Five Eyes. He knows about everything. So who would know better than him? But from my mind, this so-called competition between nations is the same as the so-called competition between nations in politics that we actually do see. I feel like it's a smokescreen. And I feel like, you know, because there's no way one country is going to cause the genocide of another country and that country isn't going to know. For example, the US has the most advanced defense technology in the world, right? The UK is, what, 5th? There is no way that any country like Russia or China will be able to just come into this country, infiltrate this country and start firing weapons without the UK knowing, and especially the US knowing. There is no way they'd be able to do that without our countries knowing. There's no way foreign countries can come up in here and start firing weapons on people or firing weapons on certain demographics and other countries don't know about it. It could be the Russians or the Chinese attacking people in this country. It could be them. Because one of my relatives who was also going through this, she was attacked by a Russian. So it could be the Russians, it could be the Chinese, it could be them. Yes, it could be. But you mean to tell me that there's any way in hell that they're going to torture somebody on this soil? This soil, one of the most powerful countries in the world. You mean to tell me they're going to attack somebody on this soil and MI5 ain't going to know? Come the fuck on. That don't even make any sense. That makes no sense. MI5 have eyes and ears everywhere. And the US government especially have eyes and ears everywhere. There are data about millions of people in this country that have already been sold to the US. So the US especially have eyes and ears everywhere. There is no way in hell that people are going to fire weapons on people in this country and the UK government doesn't know. There is no way. And MI5, baby, I could tell you so much about them. And it's not just me applying for my own information and not getting my own information. That's the tip of the iceberg. There are things that I could tell you about them people. But I'm going to wait for the right time. Somebody has to drop the ball before I say anything. Now, I'm trying to get all the information out as quickly as possible before they end up, you know, trying to do the same thing that they did to my mum. So I'm trying to get as much information out as possible. But the way this works is, when it comes to MI5 and when it comes to what I'm about to reveal about them, I'm waiting for somebody to drop the ball. Yes? Not good. No. Yeah, sure. yeah, so I'm about to go to the hospital soon because yeah, there's no way they don't know. There's no way they don't know. I'm not about to buy that shit. I can't even remember what I was saying. I lost my train of thought. So yeah, I gotta go. We'll talk soon. Peace and blessings. Bye bye.